They say the worst kind of backstabbing comes from your own flesh and blood. I used to think that was just dramatic talk. But in that moment, sitting at the long dark wood table in the meeting room, facing the man who was my father, Robert, I felt the truth of it like a punch to the gut. The room smelled like old money and big plans. On the wall behind him was a huge picture of the first building our company owned, where everything began. He always talked about how this business, Apex Solutions, was his legacy, what he'd leave behind. What he didn't mention, it turned out, was that I wouldn't be part of that legacy. My name is Chloe Vance. Until yesterday, I was the head of tech and new ideas at Apex Solutions, our family company. I spent 8 years helping it grow from a small local place to a major nationwide logistics operation. I brought in new systems, made everything run smoother, and built special technology that gave us an edge in a really competitive field. I worked side by side with my father. I missed holidays, birthdays, even my own engagement party, all for this company. And there I sat, watching him lean back, put his fingertips together, and smile as he said, "Your brother is taking over the family business. We don't need you anymore." There was no anger in his voice, no yelling or banging the table. Just a cold, planned-out sentence he'd clearly practiced. Around the table were the company leaders and my younger brother, Ethan. He wouldn't look at me. He just stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, wearing the dark suit I helped him pick out for his first job interview here 5 years ago. The same brother who'd once called me needing help getting ready for his first big presentation to investors. "Dad," I said softly, keeping my voice even. "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?" He nodded, like this was just a normal update, not a personal ambush. "Ethan has shown great potential, and we believe he's ready to take the lead now. The board has agreed to this change. You will be stepping down, effective immediately." I felt everyone else's eyes turn to me, curious, careful, but not surprised. They knew. They all knew. I took a slow breath. Then I stood up. "Okay," I said, my voice steady. "I understand." Ethan finally looked at me then. Maybe he thought I'd scream or cry or beg him. But I just opened my laptop, hit a few keys, and said, "The file for tomorrow's investor presentation demo is on the shared drive. It's all yours now." I handed my laptop to the IT manager without another word. "Enjoy the investor demo tomorrow," I added with a small smile, then turned and walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because 10 minutes after that meeting finished, a hidden line of code I'd quietly put into the demo would start working. Not to destroy anything, but to show something. Something my father and brother didn't know I'd been gathering information on for the past 9 months. It began when I noticed people logging into the system at strange hours, files being copied for no clear reason. I installed tracking software, security tripwires, and a monitoring system hidden deep inside our main product. What I found: emails, documents, meetings I wasn't invited to, planning sessions where my own ideas were presented as someone else's. It wasn't just being betrayed. It was theft, covered up by favoritism and delivered with a smile. I had been building the company's future while they were building a future that didn't include me. So I stopped trying to fight for a place at a table that was already being cleared for someone else. I got ready instead, not out of anger, but to protect myself. Because the product they planned to show off tomorrow, the smart system that helps manage shipping and got us our biggest deals, was my creation, not my father's, not Ethan's, and certainly not something they could just take without consequences. Back in my apartment that night, I didn't cry. I didn't complain on the phone or post something vague online. I ordered food, opened a bottle of wine, and pulled out my personal backup drive. On the screen, a timer appeared. Demo mode activating in 10 minutes. I smiled because they had no idea that tomorrow, in front of our most important investors, the system would need one thing before it could run: proof it was being used by the person who originally built it. And that person wasn't in the building anymore. By 9:15 a.m. the next morning, my phone had already buzzed 22 times. I didn't answer any of them. Voicemails from my father, one from Ethan, one from Sarah, the head of client relations, and another from a number I didn't recognize but immediately knew was the direct line to the boardroom. I let them pile up like ignored warnings. At 9:45, I poured myself a coffee, stepped out onto my balcony, and opened the live investor feed on a personal backup tablet. the one I'd used to test the system's smart decision-making. It was kind of funny, using the very thing they were about to present as Apex Solutions' own breakthrough. The video feed was perfectly clear. I watched from a distance as my father stood in front of a polished screen with the words System Alpha shining behind him. He wore his special red tie, the one for big meetings, and started his speech with practiced confidence. As many of you know, Apex Solutions has always been a leader in moving goods, he said. But today we're showing you something completely new. The presentation started as planned. A smooth guided screen showed how the smart system worked, how it could learn from how warehouses operate, find the best routes, cut down delays, even lower costs by up to 28%. Then came the key moment. 10 minutes in, the screen flickered once, then again. My father paused. A few investors shifted in their seats. The screen blinked twice, and a new message appeared. Not the one they practiced. Authentication failure. Original developer key missing. Please insert valid security token to continue. I could almost hear the silence through the screen. My father tapped the touch screen once, twice, then looked over at the lead tech guy, who was frozen behind his laptop. Is this part of the demo? One investor asked. Then the screen changed again. Unauthorized use detected. Developer has initiated Ethical Compliance Protocol 8.1. Internal system logs now accessible to all stakeholders. And just like that, the record started scrolling. Every time document access, every late night login, every private meeting between Ethan and an outside expert talking about using the tech before I was officially fired. Even email chains discussing when to replace me, not if. I sipped my coffee and tilted the screen back, letting the morning sun warm my face. What I had built wasn't just smart software. It was a guard, one that watched and learned, not just from code, but from people. It didn't just track things moving in a warehouse. It tracked how people acted, including when things weren't done right or were unethical inside the company. It was designed to protect the systems from anyone, even the owners, even me. At 10:05 a.m., my father finally called again. This time I answered. Chloe, he said, his voice low, like he was trying to stay calm in a room that was probably chaos. What did you do? I didn't answer right away. You locked down our most important presentation, he went on. Do you have any idea how this looks to the investors? I do, I said. It looks like your company tried to erase the one person who made that system possible. There was a long, quiet moment. I didn't know Ethan went behind your back, he finally said. That wasn't the plan. I let that hang in the air for a second. But cutting me out completely was the plan, right? More silence. You didn't even ask me, I continued. You just decided I wasn't needed anymore. Like I hadn't spent 8 years building what you now call System Alpha. Look, he said, his voice a little softer. Maybe we were too quick. There's still a place for you here. No, I said firmly. There isn't. Not anymore. I hung up, and that's when another message popped up on my private screen. Ethical breach report sent to stakeholders. Complete. This wasn't about destroying the company. It was about showing the truth. I had set the system to copy the full internal ethics report to every investor's email. Not to be mean, but to be open. They deserved to know what kind of people were leading the company, what kind of behavior was being hidden behind red ties and boardroom smiles. By 12 p.m., 5 board members had quit. 4 investors pulled out their offers, and the rest asked for an urgent check into the company's ethics before they'd give any more money. I didn't celebrate. This wasn't a win. Not yet. But it was clear. For the first time in months, I wasn't wondering if I was making too big a deal out of things. I wasn't telling myself to stay quiet. I had told the system to protect itself, to protect what we built. And it had listened. People always see the end result. Success, big changes, getting even. But they rarely see the years before that. The quiet hard work, the tiredness that never really goes away, the family dinners missed, the relationships that suffered, the nights you fall asleep at your desk with lines of code still in your head. That was my life for almost a decade. After finishing my degree in computer systems, I had job offers from big tech companies and growing startups. But I chose the family business Apex Solutions because I believed in what my father had created. I believed I could make it even better. Back then, the company was struggling to catch up. My father didn't understand automated systems, smart computer learning, or even using online data storage. He was old-fashioned. He believed in handshakes, paper records, and loyalty. Or so I thought. I didn't come in demanding a big job title or salary. I started low. Project advisor, then lead programmer, then tech planner. Each year, I built something new. Software for tracking stock, automated warehouse systems, smart shipping routes, and finally System Alpha, although it had a different name back then. System Alpha started as something I worked on the side, a smart system trained to find problems in supply chains. But over time it changed. It started seeing problems before they happened. Late shipments, dishonest suppliers, information leaks from inside. It wasn't just about making things better. It was about protection. I showed it to Ethan once, back when he was just the kid trying to help out. He'd come to my office late at night, watching me draw complex maps on whiteboards and write down logical steps in the edges of my coffee-stained notebooks. "This is unbelievable," he'd said once, watching System Alpha instantly change a delivery route after predicting a worker strike. "It's like the computer can see the future." "No," I said, "it sees patterns and it learns." At the time, he looked at me with wonder. That was before the board meetings he started going to by himself. Before he stopped replying to my messages. Before the quiet rumors started. I didn't want to believe it. Not even when I saw the first signs. A copy of my basic design shared using Ethan's login. A budget item for making the software bigger that I hadn't approved. Meeting invites for System Alpha demos that didn't have my name on the list. At first, I told myself it was a mistake, that Ethan was just clumsy or too eager, that Dad didn't know. But when I brought it up gently, respectfully, my father looked me in the eye and said, "Maybe it's time to let your brother take the lead on some of these projects. He has a real talent for business." A talent. That's what he called it. That night, I stayed at the office until 2 a.m. I stared at the original code of the system I created and thought, what if they really try to take this? What if they completely lock me out? So I started adding protective measures, not harmful code, not ways to break things, just a quiet instruction that said, if the security check doesn't match the creator's special code, the system shuts itself down automatically. No drama, just the facts. I also started making encrypted copies of every major step in the project and saving them off the company network. And I waited. Now, after the failed investor demo, everything had worked exactly as I planned. Ethan had called 7 times already that afternoon. I didn't answer, but I listened to one of his voicemails just to hear how he sounded. "Chloe," he said, his voice tight with stress. "We need to talk. Look, I know things got messed up, but we didn't mean to push you out. It was Dad's decision, okay? I was just going along with it." Going along with it. That phrase replayed in my head for hours, because going along with it is how betrayal starts. Not with bad intentions, but in silence, in choosing not to speak up, not to stop something wrong. By 5 p.m., Sarah from the client relations team emailed me directly. "Chloe, several key investors are asking if you will come back to finish the System Alpha demo. There's a plan being discussed to offer you a temporary advisor job and better pay. Please reply within the next 48 hours. The board is willing to talk. Regards, Sarah T." They were scrambling, and I could have taken the offer. I could have walked back into that office, asked for a share of the company, a new job title, a large sum of money, smiled nicely, and pretended we were all working together again. But I didn't want a seat at a table that felt toxic. I didn't want money to keep me quiet or a fancy title that meant nothing. I wanted something more important. My principles, getting credit for my work, and the power to make sure what I built could never be used against me again. So I wrote my reply carefully. "Sarah, thank you for your email. I'm open to talking, but I will not come back under a temporary advisor title. I am prepared to take back leadership of the System Alpha project under terms that include being formally recognized as its creator, having 60% ownership of the technology rights, and the power to say no to how it's used ethically. Otherwise, the system will stay locked. Sincerely, Chloe Vance." I hit send and closed the laptop. This time, I wasn't waiting for anyone's permission. That evening, I got an invitation for dinner. It was a short, formal message from my father's assistant. "Chloe, Your father has asked for a private dinner to discuss the company's future and your part in it. He hopes you will join him tonight at 7:30 p.m. at the Golden Spoon. A table has been booked under Vance, his favorite restaurant, the same one where we celebrated the company making its first $15 million in a quarter. Back when I still thought this business was a family, not just a brand name. I thought about not replying, but then I remembered something an old mentor once told me. Never leave the table when they finally realize they need you. Make them say it out loud. So I dressed nicely, got there exactly on time, and found my father already seated at a corner table, wine glass in hand, menu untouched. He stood when he saw me. "Chloe." I nodded. "Dad." No hugs, no fake friendliness, just silence as I sat down across from him. He looked at me closely, as if trying to read my face, which didn't show anything. "You look good," he said. "Strong." "I am." He cleared his throat. "You've certainly made an impact in the last day." "Funny," I said, tilting my head slightly. "I've been making impacts for 8 years. You just weren't paying attention." That stopped him for a moment. Then came the sigh, the one I knew too well. Part annoyance, part forced humility. "I have to admit we made some poor choices," he began. "Pushing you out was too soon." I didn't answer. I wanted to see what he would say next, whether he was there to say sorry or to try and bargain with the same tricks he used in business meetings. "You've built something truly special," he continued. "And we want you back." Ethan agrees. "The board is ready to offer you a co-leader position, the same pay as him, shared control of the System Alpha project, and extra money for the past work." I raised an eyebrow. "How sweet." He frowned. "Chloe, no," I cut in. "Let's not pretend this is about being fair. You didn't come here to make things right. You came because the system won't work without me, and the investors are threatening to leave." I leaned forward, my voice quiet but firm. "You came because you lost control." He stared at me, his jaw tightening. "You're not being reasonable." "Reasonable?" I repeated. "Dad, I spent almost a decade turning your idea into something that could change a whole industry. I gave up everything. Safety, personal lifetime. And when it started to work, when it became something real, you handed it to Ethan like a prize he didn't earn." His eyes narrowed. "You're overreacting. Ethan might not have your technical skills, but he has vision." "No," I snapped. "He has ambition. And you gave him mine." For a moment, we just sat there. Two people who used to be father and daughter, now just two professionals arguing over who owned the same business. He finally said, "What do you want?" There it was. The question I'd been waiting for. "I already told Sarah," I said. "I want 60% of the System Alpha technology rights, official credit as its creator, control over every time it's used, and $7 million in back pay for using my work without my permission." His jaw clenched. "That's too much." "That's more than fair," I said. "I could have told everyone about this. I could have let those internal records become public news." "You wouldn't do that," he said with a hint of his old certainty. "Wouldn't I?" I leaned back in my chair, just as calm. "You taught me to protect what I built. You just never thought I'd use that lesson on you." He looked away for the first time all night. Maybe it was guilt. Or maybe he realized that for the first time, I wasn't the daughter trying to make him proud. I was the woman who didn't need his approval anymore. The bill came, he paid. As we stood up, he said quietly, "I'll have the lawyers draw up the papers." I nodded. "Good." "And Dad," he looked up, "I'm not coming back to work for you. I'm coming back as your equal. Remember that." He nodded slowly. "Understood." I walked out into the night, the cool air feeling like a fresh start. The street was quiet. My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. "Board informed. Drafting new terms. Congrats." I didn't smile. Not yet. This wasn't over. But the power balance had shifted, and for the first time in a long time, I was exactly where I needed to be. 4 months later, System Alpha was everywhere. We had just signed our biggest deal yet, with a massive international shipping company that worked across 7 continents. System Alpha would be like the main brain for all their logistics, watching every step in real time, predicting risks, stopping problems, and doing it all under our new ethical rules. Every contract had clauses I had personally added, Safeguards for workers, protection for data, and automatic reporting systems that would activate if misuse was found. I didn't just want to change the system itself. I wanted to change how such systems were managed. And the world had noticed. I was asked to speak at industry events. A major business magazine wrote a story called "The Woman Who Reshaped the Industry." My inbox was full of messages from investors and offers to buy me out. But I wasn't selling because this wasn't about just making money. It was about owning what I had built and protecting it fiercely. Inside the office, the feeling had changed. People were more cautious around me at first, unsure what my return meant. But I made it clear. I wasn't there to punish anyone. I was there to lead. Not with anger, but with clear purpose. Ethan, he kept his distance. After things settled down, he stepped back from his executive role and took a less important job, business development associate. A step down in all but title. He avoided talking to me directly, though I did see him once standing quietly outside the System Alpha control room, watching the screens flicker with live data. His face showed nothing. My father kept up appearances. He praised me publicly, talked about my forward-thinking leadership at meetings with shareholders, and even posed with me in company press releases. But privately, our relationship stayed formal, not cold, but separate. Like two old generals who had gone through the same battle but weren't on the same side anymore. And that was okay, because some old hurts don't need to be fixed. They need to be accepted so you can keep going, with your defenses strong. Then came the day that felt like the story was complete. I was scheduled to speak at the company's annual innovation conference, a big event where our most important clients, investors, and partners flew in from all over. Backstage, I looked over my notes, took a deep breath, and walked onto the stage. The lights hit me. Dozens of faces looked back, but I wasn't nervous. I was ready. 4 years ago, I began. This company almost lost its future. Not because of rivals or market crashes or new technology, but because of something much harder to see. Betrayal from within. There was a quiet moment in the room. Betrayal doesn't always look like someone trying to sabotage you. Sometimes it's quiet, a meeting you're not invited to, a decision made without asking you, a source of funding with your name taken off. A few heads nodded, others looked stiff. I didn't fight back with lawsuits or headlines. I let the system I built tell its own story because I trusted it to be truthful. I paused, letting that sink in. And here's what I've learned. You have to protect what you build. Not just the code or the contracts, but your honesty, your ideas, your personal limits. More nods now. People were really listening. Because if you don't protect them, someone else will take them. And they won't ask. They'll smile while they do it. They'll say it's just business, that it's nothing personal. I stepped forward. Make it personal. The room was completely still. System Alpha didn't just predict problems. It found patterns, and those patterns told a story. A story about what happens when new ideas are treated like something to own instead of something with a real purpose. Another silent beat. I'm not here because I played company games. I'm here because I was ready. Because I stayed true to what I knew was right, even when it hurt. And that's what I want to leave you with today. I looked out at the managers, the engineers, the new interns. At some point, someone will try to take what you've created. They'll think less of you, ignore you, replace you. I let that thought hang in the air. But remember this, true power isn't about who gets the credit on the first page. It's about who is in charge of the next chapter. Applause started. Not loud, but genuine. After the meeting, a young woman came up to me, shy, excited, her eyes full of hope. Maybe the way I used to look at my dad. "Ms. Vance," she said, "what's the secret to doing what you did?" I smiled, handed her the microphone they'd just taken from me, and said, "Build something they can't take from you, and make sure it knows exactly who you are." That night, I got home late, tired, buzzing with energy, feeling complete. As I took off my shoes, my phone gave a quiet buzz. A soft message from the System Alpha. System integrity secure. Threats neutralized. Protection active. Creator verified. I smiled. Not because the fight was over, but because from now on I'd never have to face it without my own tools again.